yeah, there's this kind of really important piece of Hakomi that you were just speaking to around part of what we're doing in our explorations is we're finding the places where the nourishment that is available doesn't go in. Um, because that suffering isn't necessary. There are situations in life that are objectively painful, and that suffering is a completely, you know, appropriate and unavoidable response to them. But there are also kind of layers upon layers above that of unnecessary suffering. So what in Buddhism was described as the second arrow, like the suffering about the suffering. And that's what we work with in Hakomi to try and offer alternative experiences to, find opportunities to kind of uh, to see if there's some way of offering nourishment that's kind of going to get in behind those defenses. Um, so
And maybe we could call them coping mechanisms.
yeah, they're management strategies. They're ways of trying to prevent pain that often cause more pain.
Yeah, and often I just would like to say as well for the audience that these are also seen as resources in
Mm,
Hakomi. Well, how is this person resourced themselves
yeah.
to try to minimize often their pain,
Mm,
and that these resources, coping mechanisms, management strategies were all actually very necessary at one point. And the self-study part is studying whether they're actually still necessary and
mm,
if they are, in fact, like you just said, blocking nourishment without realizing.
yeah. Yeah. It's like, so I do a lot of 12-step related stuff. And I often like to describe it in the context of that. We talk about character flaws, character defects. And I always like to name to people that we're not saying that we have particular behaviors that we should never ever show. It's like there is a right place and a right time and a right size for all of those things. And they come from a situation in our past where they were the right thing in the right place at the right time. It's just that when we take that response to the world and we apply it throughout our life because it's the only tool we have in our toolkit, that's when we start to cause unnecessary suffering for ourselves and others. And so what we're doing with Hakomi is encouraging those parts of ourselves that hold those strategies to kind of right size those responses so they only come out in the right place at the right time to the right
Yes. Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is what were adaptive patterns can become maladaptive.
yeah, when they
Yes.
become broad spectrum default responses to life,
Yes.
which is a very, very natural process. So
Yeah,
um
but to view them as defects is what I would say is part of this kind of what Ron was saying, that we have a non-violent approach, because I would that feels subtly violent on my system to call them, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why I like to reframe it as just outsized resources, outsized survival responses that were necessary. They're there
Yes.
for good reason.
Yes.
They're just not necessary right now in this moment.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. And in your experience, so without obviously without the container of this being in a session, so kind of are you able to share any of what we've just spoken about in terms of your own experience through Hakomi?
Yes, so that was what I was alluding to just now as I was reflecting on a session that we had together. And it actually came on the back of a few other sessions that we'd done where I was noticing that there was something in me that felt unsafe, that couldn't really trust other people to look after me or to it felt like this dance around where is the safe meeting place? How much support can I let in? If I let a bit in, does that mean I have to continue letting it in? And there's a whole piece there around, you know, boundaries or lack of boundaries that I may have experienced as a child. That's kind of where it was stemming from. But how it was showing up in the present moment was um almost like if I was offered touch by you in a session. To start with, we were just doing it with eye contact, right? And you were looking away and looking towards. And I just felt so much more comfortable when you were looking away. There's something in that whole relational piece I just didn't have to take responsibility for anymore when you were looking away. So I could just put my defenses down a little bit.
Yeah, may I just interject just a tiny bit
Mm,
just to also explain that that was like a little mini experiment we were doing, wasn't it?
mm,
So I would look directly at you, and then I would look over to the side whilst you would still talk to me because there was something in that feeling safer.
mm,
So this is another part of Hakomi, isn't it? To set everything up as a little experiment. What happens if I don't? What happens if I
mm,
look this way and you don't have to, you know?
mm-hmm. So then the experiments kind of developed as we started to learn a little bit more about how I was organized, by which I mean what parts of me and what strategies come out in response to this particular little micro situation that we're really slowing down and getting quiet in order to be able to study so we can notice everything that's coming up. So we're not doing this in a normal um, kind of state of mind where we're just having a conversation. We're getting really mindful so we can notice all the nuances of experience. So then we kind of moved on more to exploring touch and what happened if you offered me touch. And there was just, even at the idea of the experiment, and this often happens for me, I react to the idea of the experiment before we even try doing the experiment. Something in me clenches up, pulls back, goes, it's not safe. And some of these sessions felt like a little bit clunky, or like it wasn't flowing properly, or a little something, because there was something in me that was trying to take control of it so that I could be safe. And then we had a session where again there was talk of offering me touch, and I went, oh God, I don't know. I kind of froze. And
Mm,
you did this thing that no other person has ever done, and which is the one of the beautiful things about Hakomi is it's so creative and so unique to what's going on in that specific relational alchemy between those two people in that moment, that new things are showing up and new ideas coming up all the time. So in this instance, you moved towards me, but you stayed, a little bit away, which is what I needed. You put your arm out in front of me and you said to some people out there, some imaginary people, you're not touching her. And that was so powerful.
mm.
That was, and I can see it touches you again now,
Yeah, I
just
remember. It's
speaking
brought it
about
up.
it.
I remember it. Yeah.
And that was such an important missing experience for me, to be protected, that it really went in, and for it to have been seen without me having to articulate that, because I couldn't explain it. I couldn't name that was the experience that I was missing. But until I could feel protected, I couldn't fully feel safe coming into relationship. So that was my block. That was that piece that was going, no, this relationship, I'm not sure relationship is safe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah. Really beautiful. And I remember. So I'd like to. Well, thank you for sharing that. First of all, I remember the moment. It's kind of in my body memory as well, and I also hear how deep that went in.
Mm,
When you share, it's like that one's really gone in.